Human curiosity is insatiable, which is why people have always tried to explore the world. However, scientists have often gone too far throughout history. In this video, we want to present the most extreme and bizarre experiments of all time. In addition to cruel animal crossings, you will also see completely unscrupulous psychological experiments and the worst military experiment ever conducted. Let's dive right into one of the most extreme psychological experiments ever conducted, the Stanford Prison Experiment, carried out in 1971. 3 American psychologists aimed to find out how people would behave in confinement situations, specifically in a prison setting. For this, 24 university students were randomly assigned to be guards and prisoners, respectively, and were placed in a simulated prison for several days, under constant camera surveillance. At the beginning of the experiment, the 12 prisoners were led to their cells by the guards, with each cell housing 3 prisoners. Any requests, whether for food or to use the restroom, had to be made to the guards, who held the power to grant or deny permission. On the second day, the experiment spiraled out of control. The guards, who were regular students, began to abuse their power blatantly. They denied the prisoners' requests, humiliated them, and beat them during the night, believing the cameras were turned off. The situation worsened when the guards started to create divisions among the prisoners, treating some with more privileges than others, which led the prisoners themselves to turn against each other. The experiment faithfully replicated the dynamics of a real prison, except for the fact that the prisoners were innocent students and the guards had never used violence in their lives before. The experiment had to be terminated after 3 days due to excessive violence. The most frightening aspect was realizing how anyone could become an absolute sadist when given power. Fortunately, none of the participants suffered long-term harm, despite the violence and trauma. Continuing with a completely different type of experiment, there's the issue of genetic crossbreeding. In the history of science, there have been attempts to merge different living beings through genetic engineering. One of the most extreme examples is the creation of the liger, resulting from the crossbreeding of a lion and a tigress. This was already done in the 19th century to attract more visitors to zoos by offering something that didn't exist in nature. Nowadays, ligers can also be bred in laboratories. The result is gigantic felines up to 3.5 meters long and weighing 350 kilograms, which are heavier than any lion or tiger. The most frightening aspect is their aggressiveness, as ligers combine the wildest attributes of both animals and could become an unpredictable opponent for humans and nature. However, so far, ligers only exist in captivity, and if one of them were to escape, no one would be safe. Moving on to another type of experiment, we have Unit 731. It was a secret installation of the Japanese army during World War II, whose aim was to research methods to eliminate Japan's enemies in every possible way. In secret laboratories, various biological and chemical weapons were developed and tested during the war. Chinese civilians were used as guinea pigs in experiments, including tests of grenade explosions close to the human body and exposure to inhumane conditions, such as extreme cold. It was also explored how insects could be used to decimate entire populations in perverse ways. Unit 731 also conducted experiments with artificial diseases, like infecting Soviet prisoners of war with plague bacteria or severe burns, resulting in consequences so grave that cannot be described here. All experiments by Unit 731 were classified as war crimes after Japan's surrender. It was one of the most horrifying series of experiments of all time. The so-called Milgram Experiment, conducted in 1961, was also led by an American psychologist named Stanley Milgram. Milgram aimed to find out, in this experiment, to what extent people were willing to inflict pain on others when pressured by a supposed higher authority. For the experiment, participants were placed in the role of teachers who were supposed to punish students with electric shocks for allegedly doing something forbidden. The instruction to punish always came from an experiment supervisor, who presented himself as the head of the teachers. During the experiment, the teachers were asked to administer electric shocks to the students, with 9 different intensities available. The result was alarming. Out of the 40 supposed teachers, 26 punished the students with the maximum intensity of 450 volts, even seeing how much the students suffered after each electric shock. Only 14 participants refused to use the maximum intensity, distributing at least 300 volts. What the supposed teachers didn't know was that the students were all actors and were not actually being attacked with electricity. All pains were simulated. It was frightening to see how ordinary people can be easily led to be violent towards others when an authority like science is behind it. Quantum entanglement. Although no one was harmed in this system, this experiment is absolutely astonishing. Einstein had already dreamt of achieving quantum entanglement through the proper combination of quantum molecules. If this were achieved, it could change the world forever. However, Einstein knew that quantum entanglement was nearly impossible to explore. By 2022, physicists at the University of Munich made a breakthrough. They managed to merge several quantum networks into a laser and send them over a distance of 33 kilometers, which sounds very complicated but has tremendous potential. Quantum entanglement could enable massive real-time data transfer around the globe. What's unique is that this is an apparently analog transfer that not even the earliest cybercriminals can attack. If quantum entanglement becomes more common in the future, it could mean the end of data theft and online crime. Humanity has been working on cloning for a long time. In 1996, the world's first mammal, the sheep Dolly, was cloned. This means she wasn't gestated by a mother but was instead a DNA copy that was an exact clone of another sheep. This experiment shocked the world at the time and still raises the ethical question today of whether cloning living beings is acceptable. More surprising than Dolly was the experiment with the cat CC, the first cloned cat. She was cloned in 2001 and, just like Dolly, was an exact copy of another cat. What was even crazier was what happened after the cloning. CC was simply raised in a normal household. In 2006, she even mated with a cat, gave birth to 3 kittens, and lived until 2020, an incredible 19 years. This experiment showed the world how easily cloned mammals can reproduce. It also raised the question of how easy it would be to clone humans. Many scientists say that in itself, this isn't a problem, but for ethical reasons, there are no known cases of it happening, except for the clown. However, there have been attempts to consciously work with human DNA. The most extreme example is human chimpanzees. In experiments in the 1920s, attempts were made to alter this. There was an experiment where human DNA was introduced into a female chimpanzee to create a cross between a monkey and a human. To this day, it's not clear what the goal of this experiment was, but it can be presumed that the results were very unsatisfactory. The chimpanzee couldn't speak or do anything else that humans do, it just looked a bit more like a human. Nevertheless, this experiment was absolutely shocking for its time and showed how easy it would be to merge different species. Lastly, but not least, we come to an extreme type of experiment that, with further research, could change the world forever for the better, the so-called organoids. Organoids are millimetric microstructures that are meant to grow in cell cultures. The aim of this growth is to transform cell cultures into real organs. So far, it has been possible, for instance, to create small heart chambers that could theoretically perform vital functions during heart surgeries. Many scientists believe that, in this way, entire organs could eventually be mass-produced in labs and then transplanted into any human body. If this happens one day, organ donation might no longer be necessary, and humanity would no longer need to worry about the lack of kidneys or hearts. Which of these experiments did you find most extreme? Let us know in the comments. Until next time.
You are our major sponsor. This video required many hours of work, love, and dedication to be completed. Therefore, your participation is what keeps us inspired to grow even more and reach a larger audience with this valuable content. Subscribe to our channel, like, and share this video with others, as this is how YouTube will understand that you enjoyed this content and will present it to more people. Now, if you want to watch content as good as this, click on the video that's appearing on your screen. Thank you for watching, and until next time.